Picture this: a black delta-winged spacecraft, sleek as a razor blade, sits in a Seattle hangar. The year is 1962. In the time it takes you to watch this video, this machine would have traveled 300 miles through space, if it had ever been allowed to fly. The X-20 Dyna-Soar wasn't just another spacecraft. It was tomorrow, sitting on a launch pad, ready to make America the master of the high frontier. It could launch like a missile, prowl Earth's orbit like a predator, then knife back through the atmosphere to land on any runway from Moscow to Manhattan. Neil Armstrong was training to fly it. The heat shields were tested. The rocket was ready. Then, on December 10, 1963, one man's phone call didn't just kill a program. It triggered a cascade of paranoia, mistrust, and cosmic miscalculation that would cost two superpowers the equivalent of $50 billion and delay humanity's mastery of spaceflight by decades. October 4, 1957. A silver sphere the size of a beach ball circles Earth every 96 minutes, beeping its electronic heartbeat across the void. Sputnik. That 183-pound ball of metal just transformed space from an infinite ocean into a battlefield. Within 72 hours of Sputnik's launch, Air Force generals huddled in the Pentagon, sweat beading on their foreheads despite the October chill. Space was no longer up there. It was right here, passing overhead every hour and a half. The classified transcripts, declassified in 1994, capture General Thomas White's words: "Whoever controls space controls the world." The Air Force's answer came in the form of System Package Program 464L, a vehicle that sounds like science fiction but was deadly serious military doctrine. Imagine a spacecraft that could launch from Vandenberg, scream into orbit at 17,500 miles per hour, photograph Soviet missile sites, disable enemy satellites with robotic arms, or, if the Cold War turned hot, drop nuclear weapons from 200 miles up, giving Moscow 4 minutes of warning instead of 30. By June 1959, Boeing won the contract with a design that would haunt aerospace engineering for 60 years. Picture a manta ray made of metal, its belly covered in molybdenum and zirconia tiles that could withstand temperatures that would vaporize steel. The same Boeing engineers sketching these blueprints would, 20 years later, design nearly identical tiles for the Space Shuttle. The pilot roster read like Destiny's guest list. Neil Armstrong, the Neil Armstrong, selected in 1960. He'd later tell his biographer, "We were solving problems that wouldn't be addressed again until the shuttle. We were living in the future, working on technology that wouldn't become mainstream for decades." The cat moment arrives like a thunderclap. The very week Air Force generals celebrated their spacefighter concept, nuclear strategists at Rand Corporation were reaching the opposite conclusion. ICBMs had made bomber aircraft obsolete. Satellites could spy better than any pilot. Space might not be a battlefield after all, but nobody told the Air Force. This fundamental disconnect between military ambition and strategic reality would doom Dyna-Soar before it ever tasted vacuum. The technical challenges make modern spaceflight look like child's play. Wind tunnel tests at NASA Ames, documented in report NASA TND 2097, showed the vehicle pulling off something capsules couldn't dream of: a 1,500-mile cross-range capability. Launch from California, orbit over Siberia, and land in Florida. It could literally fly sideways through space. 5,000 miles from Seattle, in a windowless room in the heart of Moscow, Soviet engineers hunched over American magazines. Not stolen classified documents. Not microfilm from embedded spies. Aviation Week and space technology, purchased with a regular subscription for $12 a year. This is the beautiful absurdity of the Cold War. America's most advanced military spacecraft was being detailed in public magazines while the Soviets scrambled to decode what it meant. According to historian Asif Siddiqui's research, Soviet engineers learned about Dyna-Soar's heat shield composition from a Boeing engineer's presentation at the 1961 International Astronautical Congress in Washington. The Americans were literally teaching their rivals how to build spaceplanes. But here's where the story takes its twist. The Soviets didn't immediately copy Dyna-Soar. They watched. They waited. And when McNamara killed the program in 1963, Soviet paranoia kicked into overdrive. Why would they cancel something so advanced? Asked Sergei Korolev in a 1964 Politburo meeting. Unless they have something better. Something secret. Enter Spiral. Begun in 1965 under Gleb Lozino-Lozinski, a man who looked like a kindly grandfather but thought like a chess grandmaster planning 20 moves ahead. The MiG-105, Spiral's atmospheric test vehicle, would eventually fly on October 11, 1976, 13 years after Dyna-Soar died. Test pilot Aviard Fastavets, who flew this peculiar craft 8 times, wrote in his memoir, "It handled like a dream at subsonic speeds. We had solved the problem." But by then, our leaders had fallen in love with a new mistress, the idea of a Soviet space shuttle. The cat moment that changes everything. In 1976, Australian intelligence photographed Soviet BOR series test vehicles splashing down in the Indian Ocean. These weren't copies of Dyna-Soar. They were 1/3 scale models of something much bigger. The CIA analyst who reviewed the photos wrote 3 words that would reshape history. They're building Buran. The cosmic joke? Both nations stumbled toward the same solution not through espionage, but through physics itself. When you need to fall from space and land like an airplane, the universe only offers so many answers. Evolution converged not in biology, but in titanium and ceramic. Robert Strange McNamara. Even his middle name seemed prophetic. The former Ford Motor Company president approached defense spending like he was pricing car parts. Every weapon needed a number. Every program required quantifiable value. And Dyna-Soar's number didn't add up. Picture the scene. March 1963. A congressional hearing room thick with cigarette smoke. McNamara, his hair slicked back with Brylcream, glasses reflecting the overhead lights, speaks in the measured tones of an accountant delivering a death sentence. We have intercontinental ballistic missiles for nuclear delivery. Satellites for reconnaissance. What unique capability does X-20 provide that justifies its cost? The Air Force generals shifted in their seats. How do you quantify being first? How do you put a price on the future? By December 1963, Dyna-Soar had consumed $410 million. That's $3.7 billion in today's money, enough to buy a small country's air force. The first powered flight was scheduled for 1965. Full operational capability by 1968. Total projected cost, $1 billion 1960s dollars. McNamara's alternative revealed his thinking. The Manned Orbiting Laboratory, MOL, a military space station with a clear mission. Spy on the Soviets from orbit. On December 10, 1963, McNamara held a press conference that would echo through history. We will push forward with the MOL program as the next step in determining military utility of manned spaceflight. The cat moment that nobody saw coming. In Boeing document D2-80703, the crew manifest for Dyna-Soar's first mission shows Captain Albert Cruz as prime pilot, with Neil Armstrong as backup. Think about that. The man who would walk on the moon in 1969 was scheduled to fly a military spaceplane in 1965. In another timeline, Armstrong's famous words might have been, "The Earth looks peaceful from up here, but make no mistake, this is the ultimate high ground." The supreme irony makes historians weep. MOL would be canceled in 1969 after burning through $1.56 billion. Its reconnaissance mission made obsolete by unmanned satellites that did the job better and cheaper. McNamara saved $1 billion by spending $1.5 billion on nothing. Meanwhile, NASA was secretly incorporating every Air Force requirement from Dyna-Soar into a new vehicle. They just called it the Space Shuttle and pretended it was for science. The ghost of Dyna-Soar haunted every NASA drawing room from 1969 onward. When the Air Force joined NASA's Space Shuttle program, they brought a single non-negotiable demand: 1,500 miles of cross-range capability. The exact specification Dyna-Soar promised. The requirement that would transform the shuttle from a simple space truck into a complex space fighter bomber that never fought or bombed. Max Faget, NASA's legendary designer, the man who sketched the Mercury capsule on a restaurant napkin, saw it coming. In a 1998 interview, frustration still coloring his voice 3 decades later, he said, "That cross-range requirement drove us toward complexity and away from simplicity. We were essentially building what the Air Force wanted for Dyna-Soar, just bigger, more expensive, and now we had to put people in it every time." The technical DNA transfer was shameless. Boeing engineers from Dyna-Soar's corps joined Rockwell's shuttle team, carrying blueprints in their heads. The reinforced carbon protecting shuttle's wing edges evolved from Dyna-Soar research. The fly-by-wire control system tested in X-20 simulators became Shuttle's digital nervous system. Here's the number that should make every taxpayer scream into the void. Dyna-Soar's entire program cost less than 2 shuttle missions. 2. America spent 2 decades and $200 billion rebuilding capabilities they threw away in 1963. The cat moment of vindication. In 2010, a delta-winged spacecraft launched from Cape Canaveral atop an Atlas V rocket. The X-37B, Boeing's unmanned military spaceplane, looked suspiciously familiar. Program manager Art Grants admitted in 2011, "We pulled a lot of old X-20 documentation out of storage. The physics hadn't changed. The mission hadn't changed. Only the politics had changed." Today, as you read this, an X-37B is probably passing overhead, doing classified things for classified reasons, proving that Dyna-Soar was right all along. It just took 60 years and countless billions to admit it. In 1976, in a Moscow conference room that smelled of strong tea and paranoia, Soviet mathematician E.S. Silyanov presented calculations that would bankrupt an empire. His team had analyzed the American space shuttle's capabilities with the obsessive detail of a jealous lover reading old text messages. Their conclusion sent chills through the Kremlin. NASA's stated civilian missions, deploying satellites, conducting experiments, couldn't justify the shuttle's specifications. That massive payload bay could swallow a Soviet Almaz space station whole. The cross-range capability meant it could launch from Vandenberg, grab a Soviet satellite over Moscow, and land back in California, all in one orbit. 90 minutes to change the balance of power. Valentin Glushko, head of NPO Energia, wrote in a 1976 memo that should be in every economics textbook under How to Destroy Your Economy. The Americans are building a system to deploy weapons in space and retrieve enemy satellites. We must respond in kind. The cat moment of supreme irony. The Soviets remembered Dyna-Soar's cancellation. They remembered MOL's cancellation. They knew about Hexagon spy satellites revealed years after launch. To Soviet eyes, the pattern was clear. America announces military space programs, cancels them publicly, then builds them in secret. The space shuttle must be Dyna-Soar reborn, wearing civilian clothing. So, they built Buran. $4.5 billion to create a capability to counter a threat that existed only in their imagination. November 15, 1988. Buran rises on a column of fire that would make gods jealous. For 206 minutes, it owns space, completing 2 perfect orbits under complete automatic control, something the American shuttle couldn't do. This wasn't just a technical achievement. It was a $4 billion proof that the Soviets could match anything America could build. 3 years later, the Soviet Union collapsed, its economy partially crushed under the weight of trying to match imaginary American capabilities. Today, Buran OK-1K1 sits in Baikonur's Site 112, covered in bird droppings and existential irony. Another prototype became a restaurant in Gorky Park, where tourists eat borscht inside humanity's most expensive misunderstanding. Former NPO Energia engineer Boris Gubanov's reflection in 2000 captures the cosmic tragedy. We built Buran to match capabilities the Americans never intended to use. It was the most expensive misunderstanding in space history. 60 years. That's how long it took for the X-20 Dyna-Soar's vision to finally fly in the form of the X-37B. 60 years of detours, dead ends, and trillion-dollar mistakes. Consider the cascade. Dyna-Soar dies to save money. MOL rises from its ashes and dies too, wasting more money. The Space Shuttle emerges, bloated with Dyna-Soar's military requirements, costing $1.5 billion per flight. The Soviets, misreading everything, build Buran and accelerate their economic collapse. Today, the X-37B does exactly what Dyna-Soar was supposed to do. Just 6 decades late, and after both superpowers spent the equivalent of $50 billion learning that the original idea was right all along. Somewhere in a Pentagon filing cabinet, yellow with age, sits a 1963 cost-benefit analysis that justified killing Dyna-Soar to save $1 billion. That single document triggered a chain reaction that cost humanity half a century and enough money to have built a city on Mars. The X-20 Dyna-Soar wasn't just a canceled program. It was a sliding doors moment where fear triumphed over vision, where both superpowers chose paranoia over progress. Every time an X-37B silently circles overhead on another classified mission, it whispers the same haunting question. What if we had just let it fly? What classified program is orbiting above us right now that we won't know about for another 20 years? And here's the real question that should keep us all awake. Are we making the same strategic miscalculations today, killing tomorrow to save $1 today, while our rivals spend billions countering threats that exist only in their imagination? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to explore more moments where humanity stood at the threshold of tomorrow and turned back, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.